I would like to call this special council meeting of April 14th, 2020 to order. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandra Easton, and I'm the mayor of the town of Lincoln and chair of today's special council meeting. This is our first electronic meeting during this declared emergency period. In fact, it is the first electronic meeting ever in the town of Lincoln. With the evolving situation we find ourselves in, on behalf of council, we hope that everyone is staying safe, practicing social distancing, and that you are washing your hands regularly and are only leaving home for necessities like medical appointments or groceries at this time. We have been receiving ongoing reports of many people taking advantage of the nice weather. And although we can understand how difficult it is to be cooped up in your home, at a time like this, we remind you that it is most important for your health as well as the health of our seniors, those with compromised immune systems, to practice social distancing, which means staying 2 meters or 6 feet apart if you're outside, and that you do not gather in groups of any kind. This not only helps you, our residents of Lincoln and the Niagara region, but also our first responders, nurses and doctors, and all of those who support them. Please, let's continue to do our part and ensure we keep Lincoln and the Niagara region safe. The Shononton people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. We would like to acknowledge the enduring resilience of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. I will now ask our town clerk to complete a roll call of council so that we can confirm everyone's attendance, and as we are holding this meeting electronically today, to confirm quorum. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. When I call your name, please say here. Mayor Easton?
Here.
Councillor Rajima? Please take your microphones off mute. Councillor Rajima?
Sorry, working on it.
I hear you.
You hear me?
I hear you now.
Here.
Councillor Russell?
Here.
Councillor Brunet?
Here.
Councillor Pachariva?
Here.
Councillor McPherson?
Here.
Councillor Miklick?
Here.
Councillor Timmers?
Here.
And Councillor Reimer sends his regrets. He will be absent for this meeting. We have quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. In addition, I want to take a moment to welcome the staff we have joining us today electronically. Chief Administrative Officer Mike Kirkopoulos.
Here.
Chief Strategic Communications and Public Affairs Officer Carrie Beattie.
Here.
Finance Treasurer Terry Tuwala. Director of Public Works Dave Graham.
Here.
Economic Development Officer Paul Diani.
Here.
Director of Community Services Shannon McKay. Associate Director of Planning and Development Matt Bruder.
Here.
Moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our town clerk, Julie Kirkelos.
Here.
And we also have in attendance, we believe, Regional Councillor Foster. We'll see how that works out, but we have a report from the Regional Councillor. And I want to thank our IT staff, Matt Guadalongo, who is assisting in today's meeting. Welcome, everyone. Councillors, as this is a virtual meeting, I will ask that we follow some procedures during this electronic meeting. Each member of council who wishes to speak, press the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list today and then invite you to speak when I open for comments or questions. And when I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover and seconder, The clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourselves off mute during this portion of the meeting so that you can confirm if you are nay, yay, or nay. And also, when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. Don't worry, the clerk will be tracking us. It'll all be fine. Do any members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? Are there any declarations of interest? There being none, we move on to announcements by members. And please remember, you have a limit of 3 items. Do members have any announcements? Just click on raise hand.
And Madam Mayor, we have Councillor McPherson and Councillor Rajima.
Very good. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, a couple of announcements. First of all, of changes to planned events. The Jordan Lions Wild Game Dinner has been canceled for 2020. Held till next year, or the purchaser wants to contact the ticket seller, they can get a refund. This is a tough one, as I'm sure these cancellations are tough, as this is a major fundraiser for the Jordan Lions Club. Also, just coming through today was a reschedule of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Golf Tournament to Monday, September 14th. It was originally scheduled for Monday, June 1st. It is now Monday, September 14th. I also, as second item on my announcements, as the chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I wanted to bring the council, also the public, up to date on what the town has done to support businesses in our community during the COVID-19 crisis. So several things that are being worked on. A one-stop shop on the town website detailing support programs that the province and the federal government have to support workers and business during this difficult time. There has also been a establishment with the other local area municipalities and the region, a rapid response team to assist businesses collectively and work together to speak as one voice to upper levels of government. Together is how we will overcome the current situation. Our economic development officer is also speaking regularly with individual businesses to assist them with where we can. In addition, our economic development officer has set up industry-specific calls for the mayor, the deputy mayor, myself, and the CAO to hear the concerns from some of our major actors in town. Currently, we have had one with the greenhouse growers, which I'll bring up to date on, and the beverage producers, which Deputy Mayor Pachariwa will speak to, and we have one scheduled with the tender fruit growers. I think most should know that we have waived late payment fees and interest charges on property tax and water bills until June 30th. This should go a long way towards helping our local residents and businesses in the term. And of course, there is extensive use of social media platforms to encourage people to shop local while maintaining safe practices of physical distancing. So just to bring you up to date on the call to the Greenhouse Growers Alliance of Lincoln. Our greenhouse flower growers are being hit particularly hard during this crisis. Retail avenues for their flowers and the restriction in cross-border travel and some trade has negatively affected our growers. And especially at this time, you know, when over the next 2 to 3 months is for many of our greenhouse operations, their busiest time of the year. So for the timing of this pandemic, it couldn't have come at a worse time for our greenhouse operations. With people staying home, the number of flowers being purchased and stored at retail outlets has dramatically, as most groceries and big box stores are using warehouse space that was traditionally identified for flowers for other more essential products such as food and paper products. Easter growers and Garden City products are at greatest risk. Several of the greenhouse operators on the call were looking at this particular week, the week prior to Easter, as being their busiest week of the year. On the call, we discussed the ongoing situation and how the province has, thankfully, identified flower growers as an essential business. We encourage them to seek out other apps for selling their products online, curbside pickup, things like that, and even started the Canadian Flower Boost Challenge to encourage businesses and residents to purchase flowers for neighbors and employees. I think many of us have received a flower on our front door from various church organizations that have taken it themselves to help where they can. The sector was encouraged by the call and recognized that the town is concerned for their sector. These growers employ many of our local residents, our sons, our daughters, our friends, our neighbors, and contribute a lot to our local economy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That was a very complete report. I've advised IT that my visual has gone. And so I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, you'll have to identify the next
No
councillor
problem.
on the list.
We have Councillor Rajima next.
Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As an update from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, we recently had our first virtual meeting since restrictions have gone into place. The Chamber recognizes the need to be quick on its feet and to identify ways to support business here in Lincoln and across Niagara. As you know, a great many of those that live in Lincoln are either business owners themselves or are employees of a local business. We are all affected by the restrictions and business shutdowns. One initiative that the Chamber has been doing, and I will be assisting with this, is reaching out to local businesses by telephone to not only ask questions, but also to be the aggregator of information regarding economic measures that are being put into place by upper levels of government, such as the 75% wage subsidy and new credit opportunities. Paul Deaney and I spoke yesterday on the phone. Paul is working alongside the Chamber of Commerce and the BIA to support business and to continuously look for ways to mitigate the impact that this pandemic will have, including looking at conducting webinars for local businesses on economic recovery and marketing. Paul has also been reaching out to local businesses to listen to concerns and receive advice on priorities, and he is also sharing information on the economic recovery tools that are available. I will continue to keep you up to date regarding Chamber initiatives that you're used to hearing about, such as the Mayor's Golf Tournament, which is being rescheduled. The date, I don't believe, has been set in stone yet. It was to be held in May, but it will be deferred, and we will continue to look at different models and options to roll it out, as we recognize the importance of the financial support that it generates. And Madam Mayor, I also would like to speak on behalf of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As your representative on the Joint Accessory Advisory Committee, I want to remind everyone to please remember that as difficult as these times are for those of us that are able to move freely around, are able to see and hear relatively well, and those of us without significant mental or emotional health issues, these are likely significantly more challenging for those that have accessibility issues. I wanted to highlight this because I often hear reminders to check on and be mindful of seniors, and please do. Please also remember to consider the needs of those of all ages in our community with accessibility issues. And also remember to think of those that are caring for family members with accessibility needs. End of my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That was very complete and good to have those perspectives top of our minds. I see Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Mine report kind of follows Councillor Regima a little bit. I've reached out to our customer service team at the town, and I want to thank them for the work that they've been doing with the Lincoln Seniors Club, the clients of Community Support Services of Niagara, and reaching out to them to lend an ear. I would like to remind people if they could please keep seniors at top of mind. There could be seniors in our community that need a helping hand, perhaps with groceries or errands, or if you are a senior or someone that needs help in our community, you could reach out to Niagara Gatekeepers, and the number is 905-684-0968. COVID-19 has impacted people in varying ways, and it's understandable that you may be feeling anxious or overwhelmed right now. If you need to talk to someone, please call the Mental Health Access Line at 1-866-550-5205. For children, youth, and families across the Niagara region, there's counseling and support out there that's offered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through a crisis line. And you can call them at 1-800-263-4944. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I see Councillor Pachiriva. Councillor Pachiriva?
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to be on the telephone call with Councillor McPherson and the group talking to the greenhouse growers, and the overall the goal behind the calls, our industry calls, is to reinforce to our various sectors that the town recognizes the difficult situation many of them are experiencing due to COVID-19. While the town's legislative toolkit is smaller than what the province or the federal government can do, hearing from their local municipality helps reassure businesses that the town will do everything we can to support them and recognizes the challenges many of them are facing. During these calls, we're hearing the concerns of the industry, how they are being affected, what the situation on the ground looks like, and what we can do to support them. Also, during these calls, we are encouraging the sectors to think differently on how they do business, as it's a changing world now. As while the consumer is still there, reaching them during this period of isolation is somewhat different. I had the opportunity to be on the call with the beverage producers last Friday, and we heard about the impact of the current situation that's having on the beverage manufacturers and the tourism sector in general. Some businesses have experienced a 50 to 75% drop in retail sales, with those not selling in the LCBO being hit the hardest. We've heard about the Herculean efforts that the family-owned small businesses have gone to get their products to consumers. Free delivery, curbside pickup, and encouraging online wine tasting classes. We heard from the wineries involved, Sue Ann's staff, Len Penichetti, Curtis Fielding, and from Alan Schmidt at Violent Estates, that when their day ends, they usually spend about 3 or 4 hours in the car going door to door, dropping off home deliveries. So they're doing everything they can to stimulate their business. And they're thinking about ways that they can do this going online. Concerns that they brought up were with respect to taxation and marketing and encouraging Ontarians to purchase Ontario wines. Overall, the decline in tourism, and it continues, its effects if it continues throughout the summer. They were also asking us to reach out through our channels to the LCBO. There's a lot of vacancies, a lot of empty shelf space right now with foreign wines. Maybe we can encourage the LCBO to bring in local Ontario wines to fill up that space, to give consumers a choice, and maybe it is exposing them to something that they haven't seen. Throughout all of this, it's a different way to do business, and we need to think differently. Overall, the calls have been going very well. We've got an additional 2 set up this week with Vineland Growers and the Grape Growers of Ontario. I was also on with MP Dean Allison and MPP Sam Osterhoff on a call about the various government programs that they have for small business. Also wanted to thank Mike Williscraft, who had a call and allowed us in on the Grimsby DIA. And fourth one was with Minister Lisa MacLeod, who had a great talk about tourism and the culture sector, and through the connection with the grape growers that we had and the wine producers, that we'll be suggesting to them to reach out to her ministry, because tourism is a large part of the portfolio, and there might be some opportunities for them.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Very comprehensive. Everyone's finding a niche. I'm pleased to see that. And there certainly isn't much overlap. So I would encourage you to continue going into those areas where you're most comfortable. In this way, the community really does get a pretty broad representation in a number of different ways during this time. I don't see any other names, so I'm going to move on to delegations. And ladies and gentlemen in our audience, our outside audience, as a result of town hall closures and social distancing guidelines being in place, in-person public attendance at special council meetings is not currently available to us. However, the procedures for electronic participation during the course of an emergency allow the public to provide written submissions to the clerk's office in advance of the meeting for items on the agenda. We've not received public submissions for today's agenda at this time, and later on the agenda, our CAO, Michael Kirkopoulos, will speak to this in greater detail, as it is going to be other municipalities will test this out in the very near future. The next item is the motion to approve council minutes. So I draw your attention there, councillors, and we're now considering items 8.1, the council minutes of March the 2nd, 2020, and 8.2, special council minutes of March 4th, 2020, and 8.3, special council minutes of March 19, 2020. Do members of council have any questions or comments? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Benchima and seconded by Councillor Timmers to approve the minutes of the following meetings of council. Council minutes of March 2nd, 2020, special council minutes of March 4th, 2020, special council minutes of March 19th, 2020. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. When I read your name, please say yay or nay. So the first one, Councillor Brunet.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson.
Yay.
Councillor Miklick.
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is marked absent. Councillor Rajima.
Yay.
Councillor Russell.
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
Mayor Easton.
Yay.
And that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let us move on then to the motion to receive and file council information package. And there were a number of them: March 6th, March 13th, March 20th, and March 27th. I have hard copies of all of them. I didn't hear from anyone, although it's my understanding maybe there is going to be one general question. So I'll open it up to the floor, and then we'll just a moment. Just give me a moment here. Yes, do members have any comments? And I'll better formalize this a little better. I have 3 names, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so the first one that we have is Councillor Pachariva.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question, or not a question, with respect to the correspondence of March 13th, with the information from Kirkland Lake, wondering if we can, and also Grand Valley, with respect to Bill 156, Security from Trespass and the Food Safety Act, wondering if we should be supporting this bill. We heard about this, and Councillor Russell can also echo these comments, and Councillor Brunet too. You know, when we had the Farming Alliance into our Active Transportation Committee meeting, they stressed the importance of hikers and people that's taking our trails not coming into the farms, because you create a hazard right away. And, you know, if they were to leave a peanut butter sandwich behind, it would cause great financial damage to them, because it affects the crop. And then the other one I had was with respect to March 20th meeting and supporting Grey County's motion, supporting 100% Canadian wine excise exemption. And if you'll remember, Richard Lindley touched on this on our call last week with the wine members. And this is about the excise tax and the row that they're in right now with the World Trade Organization and Australia. So seeing that both of these pieces of correspondence affect a lot of our businesses and residents, I think it's prudent that we also support these and send a letter off to the affected ministers.
Councillor Pachariva, the issue of May 13th, item number 1, the town of Kirkland Lake.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to comment that this item is highly publicized at the moment. You don't pick up an Ontario farmer without seeing the most recent events. I would recommend that, and I'll defer to CAO Kirkopoulos, I believe that we need more information on this in addition to the letter. It is a very complex issue. We've never discussed the Trespass Act that I'm aware of, and there are changes to it. Mr. Kirkopoulos, can you help us in this area?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the councillor. It would be something that I think, dovetailing on the mayor's comments, that staff would like to review first before moving forward in that particular direction. I have a few enforcement questions, and I think both Mr. Bruder and I are seeking some clarity on that when we reviewed these. So I don't know if Matt has anything further to add, but I think it's probably prudent on the Kirkland Lakes one that we look to bring this back, should it be appropriate, at the next meeting, Councillor Pachariva.
Okay.
Councillor Pachariva, I'm pleased that you brought this up. This is a very important issue. I think if we are serious about food security, this definitely has to be dealt with at the provincial level.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So far,
Thanks.
the fines haven't been up to much.
No.
And again, the item from March 20th, item number 1 from Grey County.
Mm-hmm.
After our meeting with the Wine Council last week, I suggested that a letter be sent from the mayor's office to reinforce the position of the Wine Council. Mr. CAO is going to speak with Mr. Deani about that. Mike, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor on that particular one. I think we're all supportive of that one, councillor, and I don't think it hurts to offer our support of that motion. The mayor is correct in that we will be writing our own letter and working together with our economic development partners, as well as Mr. Lindley at the Ontario Wine Council.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there anything further?
No, thank you, Your Worship. That's terrific.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkopoulos. Who is next, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The next one that we have, Madam Mayor, is Councillor Brunet.
Councillor Brunet, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of comments and maybe a few questions with regards to the correspondence related to 9.3, the council information package of March the 20th. So my first...
What number is that, Councillor Brunet?
9.3, the council information package of March the 20th. Specifically, well, I want to talk about item number 2, 3, 4, and 5, but first I want to talk about item 2, 3, and 4, which is in the Committee of Adjustment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I noticed that up until March the 5th, it appears that we were reporting on applications that were coming into the town. And then beginning on our correspondence on March the 20th, it is now listed in bold red print that it's been deferred. So through you, Madam Mayor, my first question, and I do have a couple of follow-up questions depending on the answer to question one, through you, Madam Mayor, is to either the CAO or the Clerk's Department as to whether the Committee of Adjustment is currently meeting via teleconferencing, or has basically everything been suspended?
All right, that's your first question. Go ahead, Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. At this particular point in time, everything has been suspended. That suspension at this particular point in time is temporary, and both Mr. Bruder and Ms. Kirkolos may want to chime in when I'm done. And the reason it's temporary is I think we're still working with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in terms of the conduct and the conducting of virtual meetings where public delegations are critical. I think as the mayor highlighted in some of her opening comments, here in Niagara, a number of us are watching the City of Niagara Falls, which at the end of this month will be bringing forward a planning meeting that has public delegations. So it'll be the first one in the Niagara context that'll be doing that. And I think we're all watching that. They've chosen a very non-contentious topic in order to get public delegations, not a busy topic, just to see how it works, just to see what works, what doesn't work. There's a number of issues around just ensuring people who don't have technology, who aren't comfortable with technology, can still provide comments. And so we are working, as I said, with both the ministry to see if we can expedite that or determine how we move forward with that. But I see Mr. Bruder nodding. He may have some additional comments because he's also been working closely with the planning organizations at the ministry.
Go ahead, Mr. Bruder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just to dovetail into that a little bit, not much to add to what Mike just said. That's exactly right. We're still looking for some answers, some ways to approach this, just to make sure that we're, ensuring proper conduct and proper transparency and all those things. But it is our desire, to move forward in some regard to keep things moving. We still have some files that we have applicants that want to move along. So we're working to do that. We just need to do the legwork and make sure that we do everything properly.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, did you have anything to add?
Not much different than what the CAO and Matt Bruder has mentioned. We are in receipt of some correspondence sent by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing last week, which will be in the council correspondence. And it's just that they are going to follow up once legislation is introduced to allow these things to happen. So we're just on a hold right now.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I understand that Regional Councillor Foster has joined our special council meeting.
He has.
Do we have you on audio, Councillor Foster?
Yeah, I think I'm here.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome. All right, we'll move on then. Councillor Brunet, is that a satisfactory answer to your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do appreciate the comments from the CAO and the Clerk's Department and the Associate Director of Planning, Mr. Bruder. I did, previous to this council, we did have council members on the Committee of Adjustment. So certainly during that time, we were, we would be up to speed on what was happening. So it was a concern of mine that, ultimately during this pandemic, our staff are busy on other things, but I was just concerned about the backlog and how it's going to be handled moving forward. So I'm okay with those responses. I do have an additional question, Madam Mayor, with regards to the item number 5 on that same March the 20th correspondence.
Active bid summary?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I took the liberty to contact our procurement agent, seeing that her name was not on the list of this teleconference today. And I spoke to Lisa through email, I spoke to Lisa to find out what was happening, because when I looked at this bid summary, it appeared that there was 9 tenders that were closing between mid-March to mid-April. So my concern, my question wanted to be was, are things scheduled, or are things being postponed due to contractors not being able to meet the deadline? So Lisa assured me, other than without the exception of the 2020 bridge and culvert inspections that's been postponed till April the 30th, that all the other tenders are closing on schedule. So I was pleased to hear that, Madam Mayor. But my question through you, Madam Mayor, is so 9 tenders, half of them maybe have closed, the other half still are closing in April. So my question, Madam Mayor, maybe through to some of the directors, is it possible at the appropriate time that council can receive the results of those tenders so that we can remain abreast of our projected capital, our budgeted capital projects? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm going to go first to Councillor, or to CEO Kirkopoulos, and then he can redirect as he sees fit. Go ahead, Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think first and foremost, to the councillor's request, absolutely. If I could just provide some comments, because I did actually have this conversation with another member of council and the mayor earlier. And really, I think how I started that conversation is that currently there are varying guidelines, orders, there's self-imposed restrictions on all elements of construction and capital works, from planning, design, the management of it. And so with guidelines changing, I think daily, that are affecting projects in different ways, from the status, potential scope, and the location, there's a number of steps that I think we've put in place and that we can continue to do. And so I think that does dovetail onto what our procurement agent's comments were to Councillor Brunet. So some of those things include proactively developing mitigation plans if there are slowdowns or project restarts. We're also assessing what services can be continued off-site to limit scheduled delays. We're focusing on design and shoring up contracts to limit any potential risks associated with uncertain schedules and what remobilization potentially looks like. We're looking at project startup plans. We're documenting work that's been completed in some cases because some of our projects are multi-phased projects. And we're also looking at potential strategies, in terms of what a project restart looks and how quickly, once some of these restrictions are lifted, we can get going again. So I think the overall takeaway from that particular perspective is that we are assessing what stays, what doesn't stay. But absolutely, Councillor, if you want any particular results, we can make sure we share those results. We thought it was prudent from the perspective of hoping to secure good pricing to be out there, but we have stipulations in all of our contracts that specifically lay out the potential for delays, not knowing how long those delays are. So I don't know if Director Graham or McKay have any further comments on that, but I think my simple answer, my short answer is yes. My longer answer is here's what we're doing behind the scenes to be ready.
And Mr. Kirkopoulos, I just want to, I think we talked about this, but just because I think it's a good thing to know as part of the whole perspective on this, is that there are also elements of keeping our staff working that are being taken into account. And I don't know whether how many of these involve our internal staff, but I understand that's also a consideration.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. And I think what we saw a little under 2 weeks ago is that the province made a much stricter essential services list, which stopped construction prior to that construction was moving forward. I suspect in 2 weeks' time that list again may potentially change. So we will try to stay as real time with that information, Councillor Brunet, to provide it to all members of council. And specifically to your question, Mayor Easton, I think, as I highlighted, a lot of our staff are making sure all the catch-up and design work is ready to go when the restrictions are lifted. And again, the province continues to revisit that construction list on a fairly regular basis.
Thank you. Let me go over to Director Graham. If you have nothing to add, I quite understand, but I'm just going to give you the opportunity, Director Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Mike provided a good overview, but I'm happy to answer any more specific questions at any point in time, if anyone has any.
All right. I'll go back then to you, Councillor Brunet. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm fine, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kirkopoulos, I want to thank you very much for ensuring that this report is available to us. Without the report, it probably would have been more difficult to ask the questions. So having it readily available is very helpful. Thank you very much for that. We'll look forward to the updates. Now we have Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I have 3 items off of the correspondence of March 6th, week of March 6th. First one being item number 2, which is the draft regulations for development charges and community benefits charges. And I had a list of questions prepared as I was reading through that item of correspondence. But as I got to a correspondence coming out of March 25th from Kathleen Dale, which is a memo, Bill 108 update. Most of those questions were answered in Kathleen's very nice memo, very, very clear and laid out very nicely to show us what staff are recommending as far as the input that was due the 30th of March, and also kind of an outline of how it impacts us financially. But I do have a question coming out of that, and that is just a general request. I think it would be prudent that we consider a information and or training session for the council when that final document comes out. I believe it's scheduled to come out in the fall. Just to development charges and the new community benefits charges for council, so that we all understand how they're arrived at and what's involved in planning for them, and then how we split those up after we those development charges in. So I guess a question to Mr. Bruder on the idea of a workshop, training session, whatever you want to call it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bruder?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think that's a good point for sure. I think that's something we can look at. It does tend to get a little confusing in terms of the soft services that are in the DC eligible services, the ones that are going to be included in the community benefits charge, and some of the recent developments, some of which, as outlined in that memo that you referred to, Councillor, are seen as positive. There are some soft services that have been moved back into the list of eligible development charges. That's good. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good idea to hold a workshop when the final document's released. We can go over it in further detail, just outline exactly what's been arrived at. I would note too, there were some minor comments that we did submit to the province, just about pretty simple in terms of, when we talk about parkland and acquiring land, we also want to include trails in that. And then when we talk about hospitals as DC, well, we want hospitals to be included as DC eligible items too. So some of those things, but a lot of the latest revisions were positive. So to sum up, yeah, I think we can definitely work on holding a workshop for council.
Great, thank you. Madam Mayor, if I may, item number 9 on that same week of correspondence is planning for the new West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. And there are some pretty tight timelines to respond on the financing piece. So my question to the CAO is, is plans to get together with council on how that is all going to work through. So I'll put that through to CAO Kirkopoulos.
Thank you. Mr.
Through you.
Kirkopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor McPherson. Our hope, so a couple of things. There's a potential pending timeline with the province of Ontario of late May, early June to move to the next stage of hospitals. And I say the pending timeline because, and Mayor Easton can also speak to this, but we did have a conversation with ministry officials, including MPP Oosterhoff, who was on that call. They were very clear, and I think you're seeing a lot from government right now on the focus of our healthcare industry and of hospitals. Definitely when you think about the 24/7 ability to do hospital construction. So we asked the question, do our timelines change as a result of COVID? The answer was pretty clear that no, not at this particular point in time. Saying that in terms of where we're at with council and needing to update council, the initial request from the province was to be very specific and very deliberate around what our cost sharing portion would be. We still work through that. We are meeting with Niagara Region and KPMG to look at some of the details around what the region can contribute, what is the ability for the foundation to make their commitments. And so while I think a number of different numbers have been bandied around that take us in that $10 million range in terms of Lincoln's contribution and similar contributions with the other 3 municipalities. The motion that I think is being requested or being drawn up right now will simply say that between Niagara Region and the 3 municipalities and the foundation, we will come up with the local contribution. It then gives us more time throughout the rest of the year to figure out what that local contribution is. But I think, Councillor, specific to your question, we do need to find ourselves in some sort of session with council to give you updates on what that motion looks like. And I would suggest our next meeting is May 4th. I'm hoping between now and then we can get a little bit more information and also determine how we would have a fulsome presentation with council, maybe send you some things in advance and take council through that, as I believe we're thinking of an approval or a motion from council towards the end of May.
Councillor McPherson.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. One last item of that same correspondence deck is item number 13. And in item number 13, there was a reference to an email from AMO with notifications of changes to retail cannabis. And that item got me thinking about our interim control bylaw, and understanding that the world has been flipped upside down over the last 40 days or so. We are, I believe, staring at the 1st of July as the expiry of that interim control bylaw. So I wonder if Associate Director Bruder can speak to where we are, if things are still working in the background, and on 2 levels. First of all, the retail level, because there was some pretty significant changes in January to the retail side, and also, of course, to the whole production side and where we stand. If you would, Mr. Bruder.
Go ahead, Mr. Bruder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, definitely, we're continuing to work on that, even as things unfold the way they are. This is something that we are able to work remotely with our consultant, who's readily made themselves available. We received quite a bit of input from all of you, some things pertaining to more stringent requirements regarding parcel size setbacks, things like that. Some of those changes have been made. We're actually in the process now of doing a final staff review of the revised provisions. So we are keeping it moving, absolutely. I've been engaged in dialogue with them, about the cannabis provisions and the whole zoning bylaw as a whole as well. So all this is still moving in the backdrop for sure. Staff are working on it. In terms of the retail, yeah, some pretty significant changes. And we're trying to work through those if there is potential to address them in zoning, which it's not looking like there is. And also, again, Dan continues to work in general regarding the licensing framework, business licensing framework for cannabis as a whole. So those recent changes you referenced that came out in January, we're trying to work through those now, but we are continuing to move it along.
Councillor
Thank you, Mr. Bruder.
McPherson, is
Thank
that
you, Mr.
adequate?
Bruder. That is good. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. I will now ask our clerk I'm going to ask her to call the vote. I'll just quickly read this motion. Receive and file the following I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Mikulik. Receive and file the following council information packages. March the 6th, 2020, March 13th, 2020, March 20th, 2020, March 27th, 2020, April 3rd, 2020. Julie, would you please call the vote?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So if everybody could remove their mics from mute, please, and I'll call your name. So the recorded vote will be yay or nay. Councillor Brunet?
Yay.
Councillor McPherson?
Yay.
Councillor Mikulik?
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yay.
Councillor Rajima?
Yay.
Councillor Russell?
Yay.
Councillor Timmers? Yay. And Councillor Reimer is marked absent, and Mary Easton.
Yay.
That carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I want to thank you, councillors, for paying attention to the correspondence. As you can see, there are very substantial items in there. Some we wouldn't want to just accept and start sending letters out. And there are certainly a number that are quite relevant to us. So I encourage everybody to pore over them because there's quite a lot of good information in there. We will now consider items 10.1 and 10.2, Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of March 4th, 2020, and the 10.2 Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of March the 11th, 2020. Do members of council have any questions or comments? I see Councillor Rajima. Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Which item, which grouping, are we looking at March 4th?
Yes, March 4th, the workshop, Committee of the Whole Workshop, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
At this meeting in particular, we anticipated that it would be the final one of a number of very productive meetings that we held with Leading Minds Labs to establish our strategic plan. I'm wondering now, in light of the pandemic, whether we need to review what we have established. The community vision we created in 2018 is essentially a lens used to make ongoing decisions. And I would imagine that our vision for our community holds strong. However, I wonder about our council priorities and whether we need to review. I would imagine that the discussion around our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats might sound different. And we might spend a considerable amount of time reviewing trends. We did spend a considerable amount of time reviewing trends, and it was very well done. But I also imagine that trends are going to change. Council priorities determine where the focus, work, and policy directives need to come from, as well as noting the community needs that inform the corporate work plan, and ultimately corporate and capital projects, along with program and service delivery. And our mission and values guide how we behave and deliver this work plan. So I did ask our CAO earlier on, I mentioned that I would be asking this question, and he said that he may be addressing this very question later on in the meeting. So I will defer to him if he would like to respond now, or if he feels that this question would be answered when he's speaking later.
All right, Councillor Rajima, I would like to move through the agenda, move through these two items. And since Mr. Kirkopoulos does have a special report for us near the end, we can entertain we'll consider all of his items then. And if you feel then that we need to do more, or you're looking for something different, we'll go back and revisit. Is that satisfactory?
That's fine. Thank you.
All right. So is that fine with you, Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Absolutely, Your Worship.
Okay. All right then. Are there any other questions? I don't see anyone else on the list. I have a motion moved by Councillor Petrieva and seconded by Councillor McPherson. Approve the following recommendations from Standing Committees: Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of March 4th, 2020, Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of March 11th, 2020. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote, if you will, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. If everybody could remove your mics off of mute. And the vote will be yay or nay. Councillor Brunet?
Yay.
Councillor McPherson?
Yay.
Councillor Miklick?
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is absent. Councillor Rajima?
Yay.
Councillor Russell?
Yay.
Councillor Timmers?
Yay.
Madam Mayor?
Yay.
And that carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We'll now consider item 11.1, Report CS-02-20, 2020 Whipple Trust Fund Allocation. Do members of council have any questions or comments on this report? I have a motion then moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Mikulik. Approve the disbursement of interest earned by the Whipple Trust Fund during 2019 in the amount of $400 to the successful applicant as outlined in report CS-02-20. Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Miklick, and the vote will be Councillor Brunet,
Yay.
Councillor McPherson,
Yay.
Councillor Miklick,
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yay.
Councillor Rajima,
Yay.
Councillor Russell,
Yay.
Councillor Timmers,
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is absent. Madam Mayor,
Yay.
and that carries.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm working from a hard copy, but we're now moving councillors to item 11.2, which is the CS-03-20, 2020 Grow, Prosper, Belong Community Fund allocation. And the amount of disbursement here is $18,000 to the successful candidates outlined in the report. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Rajima. Receive for information report CS-03-20 regarding the 2020 Grow, Prosper, Belong Community Fund allocation. Approve the disbursement of funds in their totality in the amount of $18,000 to the successful applicants as outlined in report CS-03-20. Councillors, are there any questions to the motion? There being none, Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Recorded vote. Councillor Brunet,
Yay.
Councillor McPherson,
Yay.
Councillor Miklick,
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yay.
Councillor Reimer being marked absent, Councillor Rajima,
Yay.
Councillor Russell,
Yay.
Councillor Timmers,
Yay.
Mayor Easton,
Yay.
and that carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We're now on item 12.1, which is the mayor's report. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. You know, the last few weeks have really been quite challenging for our entire community. And we've all been very active on social media, many of us. And I think that it's very encouraging for people to hear from the council what our feelings are, and the encouragement that the community is experiencing, I think is really very, very important. One of our members sent us a message the other morning, and I feel that this was such a poignant piece that he put together, our colleague put together, and it seemed so relevant to everyone in the community that I have his permission to read this today. Good morning. I hope everyone's Easter was enjoyable and safe. I also hope we were able to find different ways to stay connected with family, friends, and our community during this time. It is unfortunate, the words that we might use to describe the lives of those around us these last few weeks are synonymous with isolation, with anxiety and loneliness. This uneasiness can be prevalent on social media, at the grocery store, and the workplace for those of us still there. Uncertainty and self-isolation are not a comfortable situation for most people. COVID-19 will possibly cast its shadow over the remainder of our term of council, and I feel the questions, comments, and requests from the community during this time will reflect that. I would challenge us as a council, this is our colleague speaking, I would challenge us as a council to lean into our existing relationships for support and establish new ones in the community. Nelson Mandela wrote, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." And I hope that our deliberations and decisions in the coming weeks and months would be anchored in wisdom and courage, and we would not allow fearful thinking to determine outcomes. Our community will be looking to us for hope and to provide a clear vision for the future. We will need to continue to build on the stable environment we have in Lincoln, one that has been provided by our CAO and senior staff during this pandemic. In our house, his own house this past weekend, our Easter celebrations were focused on Jesus Christ, his love, and his sacrifice. I trust your family traditions, beliefs, and activities took on a deeper meaning, more meaningful experience these past few days as ours did. President Steinmeier addressed his country, Germany, yesterday. No, this pandemic is not a war. Nations do not stand against nations, nor soldiers against soldiers. Rather, it is a test of our humanity. It brings out the best and the worst in people. Let us show each other our best. Let us show each other our best. Let us show our community the best. Have a great day and stay healthy. I hope that you were as struck as I was. I wasn't prepared to put it too far aside because I feel that it may just be the kind of words that we're going to be using to keep us moving in the positive direction, a very productive direction as we have been for the last number of years. And that is my report, Madam Clerk, for today.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I'll just go ahead.
I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Timmers to receive and file as information the Mayor's report on April 14th, 2020. And Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to call the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Bernay?
Yay.
Councillor McPherson?
Yay.
Councillor Miklick?
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is absent. Councillor Rajima?
Yay.
Councillor Russell?
Yay.
Councillor Timmers?
Yay.
And Madam Mayor?
Yay.
And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're now considering item 12.2, Regional Councillor Update. And Councillor Foster, are you still with us?
I think so. Can you hear me, Mayor Easton?
We can. Maybe just speak up just a little a little more, but yes, you're doing pretty well.
Oh, okay. Hopefully that's better.
That's good. And we have your report. Everyone has received your report. Go ahead, Councillor.
Good. Well, first of all, and as I stated within my report, I just want to thank the town of Lincoln, the senior staff, and everything that they are doing. I got to say, the communications coming out from the town of Lincoln have been very good, and you know, a very positive plus to our community. I have been attending a number of meetings over the course of the last month, of course, all via conference call. I left some notes for you on what was discussed at the AMO meeting. Interestingly enough, federal and provincial broadband updates was within that as well. And of course, I had my SWIFT meeting concerning the integrated fiber technology for southwestern Ontario. So both of those are going to be taking on a far different meaning because of this current crisis. It's been an acknowledged problem that we do not have adequate broadband coverage within our rural areas. And so, again, this is going to take on a whole new meaning because of this. Just to let you know, though, the RFP for Niagara has come out. I'm not sure whether or not there is a portion of Lincoln involved with it, but I will be verifying that in the very near future and be able to have that for you at the next council meeting. And the other thing that I'm hearing in the community, and I know the rest of you are as well, is around the area of property taxes and effects and stuff like that. I don't have any brilliant statements on that at this point in time. I'm trying to figure out, along with you guys as well as our senior staffs at the town and at the region, to try and figure out all of the effects that are going on with this COVID crisis. So I am in regular discussion with the Commissioner of Corporate Services at the region, and as well I have been in quite regular contact with the Mayor to make sure that we're in sync looking at these things as well. So anyway, that's my report for now, and as always, stay safe, guys.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There may be a few questions. I see Councillor Mikulik. Please go ahead, Councillor. You just need to unmute.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Through you to Councillor Foster, just want to touch on that subject you brought up with regards to the property taxes and the deferral of them. So the town of Lincoln has offered and extended an offer to residents to defer taxes. Does that, and maybe perhaps Terry Troala may be able to help out with this question as well. Does the timing of which the town remits our portion of the taxes to the region, is that going to be flexible on the region's end as well? Is the region looking at pushing back dates of remittances from the town to the region?
I'm going to go to, I'll go to Ms. Troala, and then just in case there's discussions that have been taking place, Councillor Foster, and then if you have anything further to add, you can jump in. Go ahead, Ms. Troala.
So through the Mayor, the area treasurers have been talking with the region treasurer about that very thing. We're not going to have a good idea about how many people are taking us up on the deferral. So until April the 30th, April 30th is our first tax due date. And our first payment to the region is scheduled for the May 13th. They're not going to change the date, but what we're going to do is take a look at our arrears and take a look at past history about what normally our arrears are, and then we'll make a payment to the region based like prorated based on the deferral rate that we're seeing.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yeah, it helps me. It's just I just like to advocate for ourselves, and just that we all share in the effort to extend help to the taxpayer that may or may not be able to afford to pay their taxes in a timely manner. That's my concern.
All right, thank you very much.
Good.
Councillor Foster, do you have anything further?
With that particular issue, it's a good question, Mike, that you bring up. And as was noted by your finance director, lots of discussions going on in the background. I'm not really at liberty to say, nor any of us that are involved with this, what the final conclusion is going to be on this. But don't kid yourself. We're all very concerned about what's going on with both business and households. So we shall see. My expectation is our first discussion on this is likely going to be at our April 23rd council meeting that's coming up.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. Kirkopoulos, please.
If I could, through you, your worship, to Councillor Mikulik, this is definitely a conversation that the CAOs are also having on what sort of flexibility between the region and ourselves we may be afforded. There are a number of municipalities, we are not one of them, that find themselves in some cash flow issues right now based on a number of reasons. And so they are seeking a little bit of that flexibility, but the region isn't going to make one-off cases in that flexibility. They will look at it holistically. And again, I think those are some conversations we are happening. There's a level of flexibility that I think both ourselves and the region and the lower area municipalities as a whole need to have in this. But I think as per the comments, both from Terry and Regional Councillor Foster, slightly premature to determine how many people have moved to electronic means and taken us up on paying their taxes, how many will be deferring and paying by the June 30th deadline. So a little bit of a moving target, but something that is definitely on the radar, not only of the area treasurers, but at a more global level with the CAOs.
I would also say, Councillor, that the mayors are also having this discussion in a very superficial way because it is a regional discussion. All councillors need to have this discussion. But there isn't a meeting where the issue of deferrals don't come up. And the most recent one that I participated in this morning was around energy. And so it is very much a moving target, and there are just so many things to be taken into effect. Cash flow for some industries, like energy, are very, very significant. And so the question there is, will the Ontario Energy Board defer their payment, which is due on Friday for Niagara Peninsula Energy at $10 million? Is there going to be a deferral? And this has a major, major impact because already our community has had quite a substantial break, all of our communities, but at the provincial level. So these questions, they all have to be answered, no question about it. They're all on the table as far as I can see. I don't see anywhere where they're not being asked.
And thank you very much, both Mayor and our CEO, Mike Kirkopoulos. I think we're fortunate that we're in that position, that we're able to move ahead with offering residents that we're in that position to be with or without assistance. And I just like to advocate on our behalf to, that it is a more holistic approach within all municipalities. Our fiscal prudence, I think we should be proud of that to this date.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other speakers. I take it that, thank you very much, Councillor Foster, for your report and for joining us. And we'll move on now to...
we have the motion.
To the motion, which is to receive and file. Sorry, I have a motion moved by Councillor Rinchima, seconded by Councillor Pachariba. To receive and file as information, Regional Councillor Foster's update on April 14th, 2020. Madam Clerk, if you would call the vote.
Thank you. And the recorded vote is as follows. Councillor Bernay.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson,
Yay.
Councillor Miklick,
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is absent, Councillor Rajima,
Yay.
Councillor Russell,
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
Madam Mayor,
Yay.
and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Two. We'll move on to item number 13. And this is a motion to consider confidential items, and we have none at this time. Item 14 is a motion to approve bylaws, and we have 8 bylaws today. I think first, do members have any comments? There being no, oh, I do.
Madam Mayor, we have first up right now is Councillor Russell, followed by Councillor Miklick.
Very good. Councillor Russell, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just, it's not as much a comment as a question regarding 14.8. I wonder if there's a little bit more information about that, the bylaw to appoint municipal officers to the town of Lincoln. If there could be a little more commentary either from the CAO or from Mr. Bruder.
All right, I'm looking for, tell me the number again.
14.8.
It's the last bylaw.
All right, sorry, it depends on whose version you have. Go ahead, Mr. Bruder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're available. What is your question, first of all, Councillor Russell?
Well, it's just a little bit more. It's just a question about. Obviously, I'm assuming this is because of COVID and the need to practice a little more due diligence with our residents. But just again, I want to get a little more commentary of how we are choosing the officers that are going to be appointed, and a little more background on the need.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Bruder. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yeah, this is, you're right. It's partially to deal with COVID-19, you know, some of the added enforcement measures that are in place now because of the emergency orders that our municipal enforcement team is working towards. It's a matter of adding a few people, some in the building department, some in the fire department, 2 of which departments were already had staff within the previous version of the bylaw. But another step we took as well is we removed the names, kept the positions just to allow flexibility. So, you know, could there be any changes in the future, then that would mean, you know, whoever is in those positions, the authority to be in municipal law enforcement would persist. So those are just kind of the main changes, and just to give us a little more power within the departments where we already had staff with these duties to go forward like that.
Councillor Russell?
Yeah, just one quick little follow-up. So will this require some of these people who are not normally out on the road to do patrols as well?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's not necessarily that they have to be. I think it's just an added measure. It's more of a just in case. As of right now, Dan and his team, our bylaw officers, are handling everything quite well. Just in the circumstance, you know, with all these uncertainties out there, should things change, we have a little bit more manpower to address some of the enforcement measures that we're tasked with. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bruder.
Matt, maybe you could just, in addition to these staff, which is pretty important to have a few people in the wings, but it doesn't change your coverage at 0800 to 2000 hours, 7 days a week. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor. It's just to add a little bit more in the way of resources, and just to, like I said, remove the names. Just should there be any staff changes, then we don't have to come back and keep amending the bylaw.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, then I have, I've read the...
So the next speaker that we have, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, is Councillor Miklick, followed by Councillor Rajima.
All right, Councillor Miklick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at motion 14.1 with regards to the bylaw to temporarily waive certain late fees, penalties, and fees and charges. And it's dovetailing a little bit on the previous question I had. So we're deferring tax payments till, I believe it's June 30th for the first and second installments. And then I feel there's going to be a bit of a compression with the next round of installments with regards to the final installments. Is there any consideration to pushing back those dates as well? You're going to get slammed kind of twice pretty quickly. Is there any thought or consideration to pushing back the second or the final installments as well?
All right. Ms. Triwala, do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so through the mayor, we're staying really flexible with the payment plans, but we are asking residents if they can reach out to us to let us know that if they're they need some flexibility on their payment plans. If one example is if that they have the monthly payment plan, then and they ask for it to be stopped until June, then we'll split it up. Whatever's been pushed, we'll split it up between the months that are remaining until the end of the year. There are some that pay quarterly, and so if they reach out to us, then we can discuss it with them. Our tax clerk is being really flexible with anybody that can reach out to us, with the understanding that there's going to be a lot of cases that need individual, we need to take a look at each individual situation.
Very good.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just, like I said, I just feel that for some, not necessarily all, but there'll be that compression of payments that might be a little more challenging at this time.
It sounds like we have flexibility in place. That's very good. Anything else, Councillor?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Councillor Njima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is related to item 14.6, the site plan for the property ridge that is going to be Ridgeview Gardens. And that leads me to think about the property next door, the future high school. Do we know at this time, I believe all institutional construction has stopped. Do we know what that effect that has had on the high school? And was the construction on time before this restriction went into place?
Mr. Bruder, can you help us with this?
Certainly, Your Worship. Yeah. So a lot of the works that you saw on that site, the school property, it was a lot of earthworks and doing some of the grading, getting the site ready. Wasn't any actual construction happening there. They're actually in the middle of working through the site plan process with us. The region's been involved too, that being on a regional road, the town of Grimsby as well, just in regards to some of the servicing. So that's been going on all this time as well. Virtually, we've had meetings, design meetings with those aforementioned agencies and the school board, working through specific design issues. In terms of, will the construction schedule be affected? It's hard to say. I don't think so, because there's still a ways to go to get through their site plan in the first place, which is what they anticipated anyway. There's obviously still a lot of uncertainty out there, but from what I see now, we still have a little bit of ways to go, which is not unusual for a site plan of that magnitude. So still working through those things.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So they are servicing the property at the moment? Is that what you said?
No, Councillor. They just did some of the earthworks, some preliminary earthworks now, moving some soil around. They had to do a little bit of works with contaminated soil too, I believe. So that's some of the stuff that's been ongoing, but no servicing or anything like that yet. They're still in design phase.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkopoulos?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Councillor, if I could just add, and I think Mr. Bruder highlighted most of the points there. We're only about 12, 13 days into this new set of restrictions. We don't know how long it'll last. We're hearing anywhere between 2 to 4 more weeks in terms of the restrictions, and that doesn't mean we'll get back to some semblance of normalcy. But if you recall, about 2 weeks ago, they were allowing ICI construction, the institutional commercial and industrial type construction. That has been since stopped, but that would likely be the first phase of reestablishing some lessening of controls. But again, we don't know that. That'll put us, approximately 6 weeks behind, but there is a lot of time that's been put into the schedule from a school board perspective. So at this point, we don't anticipate a delay, but the school system right now is in its own state of flux as a result of closures.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kokopoulos. Madam Clerk, the numbering system that I have is different than I think you'll want on the final record. So I'm going to ask if you would read the motion and list the bylaws according to number and then call for the vote.
No problem. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor McPherson. That leave be given to approve the following bylaws. 2020-15, bylaw to temporarily waive certain late fees, penalties, and fees and charges. Bylaw 2020-16-Z547, bylaw to remove the holding provision within the Lincoln Estates subdivision. Bylaw 2020-17, bylaw to exempt lands within the Lincoln Estates subdivision from part lot control. Bylaw 2020-18, bylaw to exempt lands within the Cherry Heights Extension subdivision from part lot control. Bylaw 2020-19, bylaw to assume the Maple Crest Developments Phase 1 and Phases 2A and B subdivisions. Bylaw 2020-20, a bylaw to authorize site plan agreement with Giuseppe and Angela Scambelluri. Bylaw 2020-21-Z548, bylaw to remove the holding provision within Cherry Heights Extension. Bylaw 2020-22, bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officers for the town of Lincoln. I'll now call the vote. And the recorded vote is as follows, yay or nay. Councillor Brunet.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson.
Yay.
Councillor Miklick.
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is marked absent. Councillor Rajima.
Yay.
Councillor Russell.
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
Mayor Easton.
Yay.
That carries.
Excellent. All right. Now, we will move on to item number 15, which is a motion to confirm the proceedings of this council meeting. And we will now confirm the proceedings. I have a motion moved by Councillor Miklick and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2020-23, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of special council at its meeting held Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, being read a first, second, and third time. That bylaw number 2020-23 be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. I will now ask the clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. And the recorded vote is as follows. Councillor Brunet.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson.
Yay.
Councillor Miklick.
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yay.
Councillor Reimer, absent. Councillor Rajima.
Yay.
Councillor Russell.
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
And Mayor Easton.
Yay.
And that carries.
Thank you. Councillors, as you can see on the order of the meeting, before we adjourn the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to mention that the Town of Lincoln Council and our staff want to send our sincere condolences to the Town of Pelham Council and the family of Ward 1 Councillor Mike Ciolfi. We're deeply saddened to hear of his passing, and please know I've sent a message to Mayor Junkin and the council today. We're deeply saddened to hear of this, and we're thinking about all of you in Pelham and also his good friends and colleagues on council. as we share in your grief during this time. I didn't know Councillor Ciolfi, but clearly he made his mark in his 52 years, and he was very highly thought of. Also, on behalf of council, we take this time to thank Carrie Beattie, who I think is still part of the meeting. And Carrie, as our Chief Strategic Communications and Public Affairs Officer, you're certainly leaving us at a time when you have certainly in the past few weeks provided us tremendous assistance. I think that the level of communication that's taken place during this COVID period and your background in public health has certainly stood us in very good stead. And it's been very instrumental for all of the community, as can be attested by Councillor Foster's comments. We wish you all the best in your new endeavors at the town of Milton. And finally, our CAO, Mike Kirkopoulos, would like to provide some comments as well as an update with respect to our Emergency Operations Committee and their efforts during this time. And there may be other staff comments as well. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to all of council. And yeah, I'm hoping you'll indulge me because it's a rather lengthy update. I do want to cover quite a few things. I will ask Mr. Deaney and Ms. Beattie to also provide some comments from their respective areas at the end, and any other member of the team that is here. But I know you may have some questions specifically around our economic development response. And so I thought that was an important piece to make sure that we highlight. I do want to echo the mayor's comments on behalf of SMT and also thank Carrie for all her work over the last number of weeks and over the last 3 years. As I shared with you a number of weeks ago, Carrie's accepted the Director of Communications and Government Relations position with the town of Lincoln. And as I said in my update and email, I know she wrestled with that decision. Her love of Lincoln is evident and longstanding. And I think we all know that regardless of the new job, Lincoln remains home for Carrie. And I think as the mayor highlighted, her assistance as we navigated and navigate still coronavirus has been absolutely instrumental. So Carrie leaves us. I think she's got 1 day off and then starts her new job in Milton. And so I know Milton's lucky to have her. And I think on behalf of the senior team, we all wish her well on this new chapter for her. If I could maybe move to the question that Councillor Rajima had and try to address that before I go into more of a general update. And I think the way I'd address that question through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor and to all of council is really that a lot of the things that we talked about during those sessions with Lori, preparing for the future, looking at the broader trends. And I think as Lori always highlighted, that VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, that remains, I think, at the core of what our strategic plan is, and any good strategic plan should be. I think residents, more than ever, the ones I talk to, the ones I hear about from you, are expecting guidance from their local government, which is the closest to them right now. I also think it's important that we show stability in this time of crisis, and I'm going to talk to a little bit of that. So the priorities reflect what we want as a community. They're intended to be future focused. They're not a year in duration. They're a few years in duration. It's important that we look beyond COVID. You know, I've always said, and I've always believed that this too shall pass. And I think that statement is an important one, and we need to continue on course and bring a lot of the important services and direction to the town. That being said, we've always said, and we said throughout the sessions, the initiatives are meant to be somewhat fluid. And I think that fluidity, depending on changing circumstances, will lend itself to us to revisit those initiatives. So I look forward to bringing that back and discussing it both with SMT and then sharing that with council. So Councillor Rajima, hopefully that addresses your particular inquiry on that. I think that's my long way again of saying we will be in front of you at some particular point in time on this particular issue. In terms of a general COVID update, Council is aware and the organization also. We've been at this for over a month now. I think March 9th was our first meeting, and we've been meeting almost every day since that particular point in time. A number of us also belong to other groups and associations. And so whether that be regional CAOs, whether that be the communications teams from respective municipalities, the ECDEV teams, the Parks and Rec teams, the Public Works teams, all these meetings happen on a daily basis, and we're all talking, I think, more than ever. There's also an emergency management meeting that takes place and briefings that I and the team receive coming out of that, as well as public health briefings. I think it goes without saying that the health and safety of our community, our staff, workers in general from all sectors and services and business is a top priority for us as staff, and it's a top priority for all of council. Again, I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn when I say that all levels of government have taken the necessary and swift actions to protect residents, our communities, and to look at both from a business perspective and economic recovery perspective, what we do need to do to protect employees, have customers return. Many of our local companies, and these have been reported both on social media and the media at large, are finding ways to lead the effort to fight the virus. We see companies like Court Holdings, Dillon's, they're developing new tools, supporting essential services, supply chains, the production of critical equipment, expertise, et cetera. Absolutely, there's economic consequences as a result of this particular emergency, especially on our small and medium-sized businesses. We have taken significant public health measures, both locally and more broadly, in order to spread the virus. And one of the comments I found myself making this weekend was that, well, the actions that we've all collectively taken have had enormous costs. The failure to act boldly will have imposed and would have imposed even greater costs to our communities and our future. So I think that does scare people. I completely understand that. We continue to follow the developments of this health crisis. We will continue to offer council advice, both on a policy perspective, on economic security, on the stability of all sectors. And I just want to take you through a couple of different categories on areas where we have been focused. First and foremost, I think everybody's aware and the public's aware of the emergency declaration that Mayor Easton, in consultation with council and input from our emergency operations team, made a few weeks ago. And that really set in motion and came at a time as we headed into a long weekend and a number of faith-based holidays. Lincoln's response to coronavirus, again, has been thorough, has been substantial. We followed public health rules at each and every, I think, juncture of this process. We're still there to service residents, both from an online perspective, a telephone perspective. Our customer service representatives are available, and not only are they responding to calls and inquiries and concerns, they're also calling seniors and dealing with the most vulnerable in our community. I heard one story from one of our staff where they helped a lady pick her lottery numbers. Some people just want companionship, and our staff are trying to provide this. Of course, facility closures, one of the first things all municipalities did and associated to facility closures was programs and service cancellations, specifically around March break camps and so forth. We've highlighted just the change from a council and committee standpoint. The pause of programs like ULink, like our water meter replacement program, and a number of other things we do. We are in constant contact with Niagara Region, and they are also amending their services around childcare and garbage, for instance. Mr. Bruder spoke around the enforcement of mandatory closures and restrictions. This has been an area where, again, we've been granted some special provisions through the Attorney General's office, right, with respect to non-compliance and the strict nature of social distancing and physical distancing rules that are changing on a very regular basis. As I highlighted, public health remains a conduit for us on a daily basis. I know I speak with Dr. Hergy fairly regularly. Anytime there's an issue around a seniors facility, whether that be Albright or something else, or just how we deal with issues where we don't necessarily have an answer. We are using both a regional, local, and provincial self-assessment tool that we are continuing to promote, communicate, and ensure our staff are adhering to. You'll notice on our website, we've got a list of grocery stores and pharmacies, again, just to help residents find a way, to connect. Some people don't know, do they offer delivery services? Do they not offer delivery services? And so there's a lot of information out there, and we're trying to find our own way of helping residents follow that. Travel advice and returning travel guidelines also is something that we're getting a few calls about and doing our best to share the information that government is releasing at a federal level. There are both provincial and federal briefings almost on a daily basis, and we're listening to those and changing our responses based on that legislation. I did highlight all of the online and phone services available for residents to conduct business with the town, whether they be customer service requests, online payments, and we spoke about late fees and the flexibility of our staff. I had a member of council reach out over the weekend about a large business that pays a significant amount of taxes, and they're currently not functioning right now. And would we be flexible? And I think absolutely, flexibility is what we do, and it's always been a tenet of our approach and our style here at the town. Social support services, again, a key area. We continue to be in constant dialogue with our social service agencies. We continue to connect them with various government programs. A lot of us have spoken regularly with Community Care of West Niagara as well as Village of Hope. So that's another key area where we are dialoguing and trying to play a liaison role. And of course, with our local utilities, Niagara Peninsula Energy Inc., Enbridge, trying to play whatever sort of liaising role we can. If I could end my comments, and again, open to others jumping in from the senior team, is to thank and there'll be time for thanks, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but our EOC team has been working around the clock. There are a number of issues that we are looking to resolve. We will continue to be available for council, to be available for the community. And I thank council for your support. I don't in any way diminish the concerns that we all have. We've got a workforce that is working right now as best we can. A number of councillors have asked about things like layoffs and so forth. And so I did make a note. Some municipalities characterize these as layoffs. I am characterizing it at this particular point in time as deferrals. We have approximately 67 students that we would typically hire. And a lot of that work on interviewing and offer letters happened at the end of February and early March. And I know there's government programs specifically around youth and summer students, and we're looking at those. But we had 16 park students, 21 summer camp students, 26 aquatic students, and a few museum students, totaling 67. They currently find themselves without employment from the town. That is one of the measures we've taken at this particular point in time. The optimistic side of me hopes that we're past this and we can find ourselves in a position where we can offer employment to students. We do have some applications through the Canada Summer Jobs Grant, which you'll recall the federal government announced they will be covering 100% of that in order to keep some students employed. We will continue to look at programs. Government relations will be a key focus of things we need to do moving forward. But if I could turn it over to Mr. Deanny first, and then Ms. Beattie and anyone else. Again, I thank council for your support and will continue to communicate and follow up on the things that have been raised today.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kirkopoulos. Just before we move to see what else the staff have to add, I just want to point out there's no shortage of information to read. There's no shortage of opinion that's coming forward. And there's going to be plenty of time, as I see it, for us to have these discussions. And things are, I think fluidity is really the core of all the discussions that are going to take place. And so I think that we need to be very much aware of the changing community. The ground has certainly moved. There's no question about it. And some days it moves more than others. But we do need to maintain a huge amount of flexibility in order for us to be able to meet the needs of our community. The future is certainly very real right now, but there's a lot of preparation that's going to be done. I can't see us nailing ourselves down too firmly at the moment, other than to have a very strong intention that we will remain flexible and we will pay attention to what is happening in the community. Now, I'm assuming that Mr. Deanne has something to say. Is that correct?
I do, Madam Mayor, and thank you to you for giving me the opportunity to speak and to our CAO. Since the province announced a declaration of emergency on March 17th and began the closure of non-essential businesses, Niagara's economy and our local businesses have been hit hard. Many residents and small and medium-sized businesses have been affected, resulting in economic loss. Working with both my colleagues at Town Hall, the province, and the federal government, as well as the Niagara Economic Rapid Response Team, we have been closely monitoring the situation. The state of the economy is our top priority, and we have been responding where we can, while simultaneously working on immediate responses and planning for the future. As shared with Council earlier today, the Business Impact Survey quantifies some of the economic losses currently experienced in Niagara, with projections that include up to 12 months away. Thankfully, these are worst case scenarios, and the hope is that we can overcome the current situation and reopen the economy. Planning for the future is important elements of what we can do now, and I look forward to reporting back at a later date on some of the initiatives we can take both locally and regionally. While we are not alone in the regional, provincial, and global economy, there are positive signs that we can get through this together. While many businesses have had to downsize locally, there are positive signs with some companies that have retooled their operations to help support the fight against COVID, bringing on additional employees and moving to a 24/7 operation. As our CEO previously indicated, many of Lincoln's businesses have stepped up, and from Dillon's Distillery, Cleanworks, Span Medical, and Opart, all are doing their part in fighting COVID, both within Niagara, across Ontario, and Canada. As the CEO had mentioned, the Lincoln spirit and positive attitude to get things done has definitely been on display during this crisis, and we encourage all businesses that need support to reach out to Town Hall, and we will help them where we can. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and CAO.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkopoulos, is there anyone else that is prepared to speak?
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, I forgot to unmute. I think Ms. Beatty had some just general comments, and then I don't know if the rest of our team had anything else to say.
All right, Ms. Beatty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first of all, before I get into sort of our COVID-19 communications update, I do want to thank the Mayor and CAO for their kind words. It's been an amazing opportunity to be the first incumbent of the communications role here in Lincoln, as I have been a lifelong resident. I've enjoyed my time here, and I've worked hard to build a solid foundation for communications, and I wish the next incumbent all the best in delivering timely, relevant, and meaningful information to our community, and also highlighting opportunities to be engaged in the development of municipal public policy. I do want to thank our partners in the community for all their support as we evolved our communications channels. And I look forward to being engaged and participate as a Lincoln resident. So I'll move into my COVID-19 communications update. First of all, our citizens have been keeping up to date. They've been seeking clarification, and they've been connecting with us as needed to make informed decisions about staying safe and healthy. I do want to highlight those information changes on a regular basis, that we encourage citizens to connect with us digitally or to call us. That is the best way to stay up to date. Printed materials will be outdated given the regular information cycle in terms of the changing information. So our focus is on digital and obviously through the phone. Our customer service representatives are available Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. by phone. In addition, just to sort of give residents an idea in terms of their engagement, we have had a 55% increase in web traffic. That's pretty significant. We, through our social media channels, have posted over 95 posts between Facebook, Twitter, and that's most of our corporate accounts. And through those, through Facebook, we've had a 165% increase and also a 96% increase in Twitter engagement. So it's a very significant, basically data indicating that our residents are seeking information and also not only receiving the information, but talking about the information, getting clarification and finding out how they can also do their part as Lincoln citizens. We do also have a Town of Lincoln Instagram account now, so I do encourage residents to follow us. We've posted only 15 times so far since March 30th when we launched it, and we've had 299 engagements to date on those 15 posts. So again, pretty significant. So residents can also subscribe under lincoln.ca under the latest news to our digital newsletters. That will ensure that residents receive communication to their inbox directly. Also, as I said, if you could follow us on all of the Town of Lincoln, Ontario, so that's ON at the end, accounts, so that you can keep up to date. Another really interesting thing that we're doing, given that most residents are staying home, is that we have started on our Play Lincoln and Culture Lincoln Facebook and Instagram accounts a recess and coffee break. So our staff in the community services team each day are providing ideas to families about how to engage themselves at a recess break and at a coffee break as they're doing their online programming. So be sure to follow those accounts so that you can get those great ideas. And hopefully just everyone stays well, and please continue to take the necessary measures and get the information from us on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm just going to throw it out to the rest of the staff that have been participating, if there are any other comments that you would like to make. Any newsy pieces? Well, thank you very much for that. Mr. Kirkopoulos, is there anything further? And then I'm going to open it for questions.
No, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any questions?
Madam Mayor, we have a raised hand from Councillor Miklick.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to, I'm going to say, Ms. Beattie, I have heard compliments from the community with regards to our communications. They have been appreciating them, and when I'm walking my dog, I do hear from residents that they're appreciating our methods of communication, and people are getting the message and they are paying attention. I personally wish you well in your future endeavors. I have a question to our CAO, and it's with regards to, what we're hearing, what we're amongst other communities and apparently within our own, and it's with regards to staffing and the negative side effects with regards to this. And I'm going to ask how is HR helping, is offering advice, like especially with these students? Like I know from a personal standpoint, students don't really have a knowledge of how to apply for funding or how to seek guidance. Is our HR staff working with students in particular to see if they qualify, see where they stand? Are they falling through the cracks? How are we as a municipality helping those that may be negatively affected through all of this?
Thank you, Mr. Kirkopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Mikulik. Yeah, I guess as it pertains to the resident or to the students that would have been under the employ of the town of Lincoln, that's where we're finding ourselves assisting. I know we're reaching out to a number of other agencies, not only to help students, but also to help a lot of people who are navigating the complexities of these new government programs. They're coming fast and furious. They're difficult to navigate. And so I think collectively with our partners at the Chamber, our partners in the BIA, the various economic development partnerships and agencies that are out there, we are working, I think, on a broad level to make sure that that information is available. I know Jacqueline and I chat regularly. Again, we will be, as we move forward and further decisions are made, working with students specifically as it relates to this particular area. And so we do have on our website, as I'm reminded, the support programs that are there. So I think we're going to continue to find ways to direct people specifically to those programs. Find a way to amplify those programs and continue to communicate through the various agencies. I mean, I can definitely reach out to our partners at the school board and ascertain what they're doing and see if, again, we can assist and continue to play that liaising role.
That I'm sure that would be appreciated by many. It's just the biggest challenge with this whole crisis that we're dealing with is not knowing when it's going to end or how it's moving. It's seems to be, we're being told it's leveling off, but nothing's for sure until it's for sure. So I'm just worried about that demographic. And from a personal standpoint, like, you know, having children myself that have been impacted through this, you know, I'm just hoping that they have some sort of support from our end. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. There certainly are a lot of programs available, but navigating them is quite another matter. I think it's a very good question. I'm pleased that the staff are making themselves available to anybody that needs it throughout the community. Councillor Russell, I see your name. Just a moment. I think what I'm going to do, Councillor Russell, before I go to you, I'm going to go to Ms. Mackay. Shannon?
Thank you.
Because I'm sure you're going to talk about something that's relative to the question.
Yes, I am. I just wanted to share with all members of council that we, in our Parks and Recreation team, have been meeting regularly with the rest of the municipalities, the Parks and Rec team, as well as representatives from some of our network agencies like PRO, who are doing some province-wide group meetings, who are meeting with AMO, who are meeting with different ministries and FCM to look at a lot of the things that we've just sort of touched on in that last conversation. Relief funds for municipalities, for individuals, resourcing, looking at total loss, user data, economic recovery plans. So along the same lines that you've heard from our economic development officer with regards to business, also looking at how it affects our industry and our projects and funding. So we're communicating regularly. We have the same challenges, we have the same issues, and we see a lot of positive benefit in being able to communicate regularly, share information, and build a bit of a critical mass there as we meet with higher levels of government.
Mr. Kirkopoulos, I see that your name came up. Did you have something relative to the question by Councillor Mikulik?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think, you know, and again, others can touch on it more, but the wage subsidy, the new increase to 100% is meant to help companies hire students. While I think we're in the crux of this emergency right now, I think you're going to see in the coming weeks, you know, that program, I think, pick up some steam. And I think a lot of companies that are currently in a hiring frenzy right now, some are not hiring, some are definitely hiring. I think you're going to see that program, you know, find itself to be one that more people are definitely taking advantage of. I did have another comment to make around a conversation I had with MPP Oosterhoff, specifically around budget and budgetary items. And I only throw that out now to highlight for council that we are talking about these things. And the MPP did highlight for me the approach that his government is taking, specifically to announcing a mini budget, which was their spring economic statement. Part of that spring economic statement looked at some short-term projects. We do anticipate significant infrastructure stimulus program coming later in the year. And I think, you know, despite what you may be hearing or not hearing, I think we need to take a wait and see approach as it relates specifically to some of these items. And I would suggest, I think that the greatest impact will be as we look at 2021, more than we look at 2020 in terms of when projects start again and the duration of those projects and how many of them are carryover projects. So I didn't want to leave council without that final comment. I did highlight that again with the MPP, and it very much aligns with the conversations they're having with definitely a lot of the larger municipalities that are taking that kind of 18-month approach to projects, not the typical 12-month approach. 2021 will be an instrumental year, I think, for all of us. And so I think a lot of people are suggesting, let's look at things now in the immediate short term. It's about both a short term, medium term, and long term game that we need to be looking at specific to projects. But more information on that to come, as well as these stimulus programs that we are told are forthcoming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kokopoulos. I understand as well that there is a strong prediction that it's going to be some time before the financial impacts for all of us can be evaluated by the province and the federal government, particularly the province, but they're certainly not slowing down on their intentions regarding stimulus packaging, that's for sure. I now have Councillor Russell. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, that is our CAO's commentary is a great segue into what my question was regarding that the process for the 2021 budget. Obviously, we're getting very close, about 4 months away now from when those budget deliberations were going to begin. So just wondering at all if you have any insight, again, I'm being very optimistic that we're going to be able to start up some sort of business as usual in the next few months. What do you foresee as being the new process for starting those budget conversations? Obviously, there's a lot of information that we don't have right now, including some of the stimulus packaging that you mentioned earlier. But is there any thought yet into how we're going to re-engage into that budget process?
Mr. Kokopoulos.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a really good question, Councillor. And I think senior staff have started to kind of put our heads there. I think the stimulus work will be critical. I do foresee, and again, maybe I'm optimistic, I do foresee where we will find ourselves probably in a month or two is a lessening of restrictions specific to projects. I think what is a little bit more of a long-term challenge for us is lessening of restrictions that see large group gatherings. And when I look at where our revenues come from, specific around sporting events, cultural events, and so forth, I think that's where we may find ourselves slightly challenged in trying to predict with a level of certainty where revenues are. So I think on the revenue side of life is where we're going to find, we're going to try to be as scientific as possible, but I think until restrictions are lifted and we see how people generally just react to safety measures, we won't know. But I think we need to start having those conversations. We may find ourselves looking at a budget a little bit later in the year than earlier in the year, depending on how quickly we get out of this. But I did receive an update earlier today that I think wasn't all bad as it relates to capital projects, and tried to speak to some things that we may see coming forward as we look at costing out these things. So a drop in fuel prices that reduces the cost of both future and active projects. Looking at kind of what I would call this regional or local lockdown that's happening right now, depending on when those restrictions are lifted, there may be an easier way and a less expensive way to look at some of the off-hour work that needs to happen, but instead that we're doing in regular shift work. So I think there's a positive there, and just the availability of workforce or equipment stock in the market. And there's others that are far more skilled in that particular area. So we're also seeing, I think, people leverage technology and the capabilities of project management and the digital element of what we're doing. And so I think having a list of shovel-ready projects, Councillor, I think is going to be critical. Often government wants to stimulate the economy really quickly. And so having a list of those projects will be an important part of kind of a budget recovery perspective. But I think that's my way of telling you. On the revenue side, it's going to be a little harder to predict where we sit from a budget perspective versus kind of the capital side. The capital side in some ways becomes an easier conversation once restrictions are lifted. It's how do we look at budget from what revenues will be. So we definitely need to engage with council often and sooner, but the decision may be a little bit more elapsed in terms of post-COVID.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, I just one other further point to that, obviously, with notwithstanding is the sensitivity to some of the burdens that our tax-paying base is going to be feeling over the next 6, 8, 12 months and longer. So we have to be cognizant of that as well as we put this all together. So just thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor McPherson, that special council on April the 14th, 2020 be adjourned at 17:08. I will now ask our clerk to call the vote. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So the recorded vote will be as follows. Councillor Bernay.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson.
Yay.
Councillor Miklick.
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yay.
Councillor Reimer is absent. Councillor Rajima.
Yay.
Councillor Russell.
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
Mayor Easton.
Yay.
And that carries.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everyone.